Today, I'm joined with one of my inner circle members, Jamie Grady. Jamie is the managing director of West Yorkshire Electrical and Solar, a domestic and commercial electrical contractor that's transitioned over to solar PV and the renewable sector. Now, on face value and what people could see, Jamie had built the ultimate business. You see, he's turning over 1.5 to £2 million. He's got 13 members of staff plus subcontractors. He's got beautiful offices. He's got work coming out of his ears and vans all over West Yorkshire. But this dream that Jamie had in building this business soon turned into a living nightmare. Why? Because his business was out of control. Jamie's business controlled everything, including his time. He's working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and turning over £1.5 million, yet making little or even no profit. By what Jamie had learned on my coaching program, he made the decision to scale his business back and regroup. And now, within 6 months of deciding and making this decision, Jamie is making more profit than he's ever made before. And all he's doing is working 30 hours a week. So sit back, enjoy the show, take plenty of notes, and listen and learn from Jamie how he's transformed his business and his life. So Jamie, thank you for joining me on today's show. How are you? You good?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you, Craig. Thank you for inviting me on this. It's a pleasure to make my debut.
Brilliant. Thank you. All right, Jamie. Well, let's start off by you just giving yourself a brief introduction to you and your business so everybody knows what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my name is Jamie Grady. My company's West Yorkshire Electrical. And I used to say that if it's got wires, we work with it. But since completing the inner circle and nailing down on our most profitable services, I now only focus on commercial LED lighting, solar panels, EV charging, and electrical testing and compliance.
Brilliant. All right. So, Jamie, what I like to do on these episodes is create a journey that you've been on that other people can put themselves into your shoes, because running a business is the exact same for anyone. And as we know, you've made mistakes, which you've rectified. But if we start off at the beginning of your journey, then people can understand where you started, what were some of the challenges that you were facing, but more importantly, where you are in today's present day. Is that okay?
Yep, fine with me.
So let's just start off and go back to the beginning on when and where did you set up your business? Give us the year, give us a time frame. Over to you.
Yeah, so I set up sort of towards the back end of 2014. I did what every other tradesman does, and looks at your boss and thinks, I can do better than that. I can earn more money than that. He's I mean, at the time, 2014, he were paying us, what, 12, 13 quid an hour and charging us out at 35. And in my daft head, I thought that he were making 20 odd quid an hour on top of us in his own pocket.
And I think for many of us, we make that same mistake, don't we? Whereby and I was same. I used to look at my boss up in his office. Here's us all grafting at joiner's shop. You know, he got a nice big house. He'd even got a boat.
Yeah.
And I used to think, well, he sat up there doing sweet FA while we're grafting his nuts off, making him all that money. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to go self-employed and go on my own, because I thought that I'd be a multimillionaire, but it don't work out like that, does it?
Absolutely not. So I started off working out. I mean, I had a work van, but we weren't allowed to use it outside of work. So I had a battered old Renault Clio, and I started off working out at the back of that, making 350 quid for changing a consumer unit, and I thought I'd made it. So I quickly made the jump, and then suddenly found out it's not quite as easy as we all thought it would be.
Yeah. And just talk to us about some challenges, if you can remember that far back. What were some challenges you were facing back then? You know, as a self-employed electrician, you know, there's all these new skills that we've got to learn that we don't realise that we need. So, what were some challenges that you had back then?
The first initial challenge was finding work. Now, I was actually really fortunate. I started doing a bit of subcontracting for someone that I went to college with, and I was having a conversation with him, and I said, I was an idiot like you, got all this business. Like, where'd you get it from? And he were really cagey, and he said, oh, I go to this kind of networking thing, and I get some business from there. So I probed a little deeper. I found out what it was. I went straight home, jumped on the internet, found a networking group, joined it, um, and all of a sudden my marketing, finding work problems had disappeared because I was getting spoon-fed work from networking group that I joined. So the challenges I then had was managing work, finding staff and employees, and putting in systems and processes, which I had no idea what them words even meant back then. They were just buzzwords. I didn't actually know what they meant. And just trying to find then how to run a business, which I was clueless.
Yeah, yeah. So going back to then, you know, 2014, you say, yeah?
Yep.
Right. So in terms of sort of like staff or turnover as well at that
Yep.
point, what size did you sort of like get to in them sort of like early years when you were cutting your teeth at it and learning the hard way? What were the turnover? How many staff did you have?
Yeah, so I took on two apprentices. Well, I took one apprentice, and then 8, 9 months later, I took on another apprentice. Um, we were probably, it's hard to remember exact figures because I was clueless about numbers, but we were probably turning over somewhere in the region of 120 grand. I was forced to go limited, VAT in the first sort of 12 to 18 months. So we were definitely over the VAT limit, which at the time was 85K. But we were well over that in the first 12 months. I took on two apprentices, and they were challenging, shall we say. Couple of young lads, pretty much straight out of school, no experience, and for me, there were a lot of frustrations around why they weren't able to do the job straight away.
Yeah. And I think we all get frustrations, don't we? You know, around staff. But listen, now you know how to find, recruit, and employ staff. You know, we know you've not got that challenge now, but back then, when I think we all start, you know, all we do is we get the work in, we think we're growing as business. The next logical move is I've got too much work coming in for me. I need staff, and that's where you went, is it?
Yeah, because that is just what you thought you did. You got loads of work, you got loads of staff, you got the staff to do the work, and your problems were solved. But that was far from solving my problems, and all it were doing was just creating more and more problems.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So you set up in 2014, and then that took you up to around, maybe around when we first met, when you started coming to my events, around, let's say 2020, right?
Yeah.
So during that period of time, you know, jobbing along, couple of members of staff doing bits and bats, but then things started to really take off for you back in 2020, didn't they? So just talk to us about what happened during 2020 onwards, because this is where the big growth spurt came in.
Yeah, so I was finally in a position then. My apprentices had qualified, and I had two electricians. I had a network of subcontractors. How good they were looking back is very debatable, but I had a network of subcontractors, and I had more work than you could shake a stick at. Again, how good was that work? It was probably appalling, but at that time we were just taking anything and everyone, particularly stuff that looked good, a lot of ego jobs, where in my head I thought, I'm happy to not make money on that just because. it's a brand, or it looks good, or I'll do that job because it's good for the portfolio, and we can use it in our marketing. So things really started to take off in 2020. COVID was actually one of the best things that happened to us, and a lot of people in trades and construction. Everyone saw a period of growth. All the businesses were handed out money left, right, and centre. People were furloughed, working from home, looking to spend money on the house. So every sector that we worked in, all of a sudden had money and had time, and were looking to make changes. So everyone that we worked with grew. All the businesses, all the homeowners seemed to have more money, and it seemed like a really prosperous time.
Yeah, yeah. So you're into COVID now. Leads have started to come in. Work's sort of like picking up. So talk to us about your staff, because you went from sort of like having 3 subbies to building and growing quite a large team, didn't you? So just talk to us about that transition over to taking more staff on.
Yeah, so the approach that I wanted to take at that time was grow and mould my own staff. So we started taking apprentices on, whether they were fresh green ones or some that were 1 or 2 years into their apprenticeship. And I just had this idea that if I can just mould my own staff in my own makings, take them young, hungry, and give them everything they want in terms of employees' perks, then I'll have a staff team that will do everything the way that I want it doing, because I've trained them, and they'll be loyal because I've took them from school. So we grew the team from some 2019-ish. We had a few more apprentices that came through, and then we grew the electricians team, and then we started more apprentices. And then sort of 2023, we were hammering loads of solar panel work. So we took on a small roofing team. We started doing some re-roof work. We started fitting solar panels for other electricians because we needed to fill the diary for the roofing team. And in 2023, we'd grown that business considerably over them last 3 years.
Okay, so in terms of how many staff have you now moved up to? How many employed staff and subbies did you have working for you at this point?
Yeah, so we had about 12 staff, and then a handful of subbies, anywhere from 2 to 5, depending what project we had on. We had 2 full-time in office. I were off the tools, in a sales and marketing role. The role that I want to do, that's what I'm interested in. And yeah, I thought I'd made it, 15, 17 staff, loads of vans on road, all signed up. Our branding's pink, it stands out a mile off. We've got loads of pink vans. In the village that we live in, everyone would say, "Oh, I seen your van this morning, you can't miss them anymore, can you?" And it really fed my ego, did that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what? It's funny that, because, part of, and let's face it, I think a lot, not everyone, but a lot of trades business owners, we have got this type of ego. We have, and even though I don't want to admit it, I had it back then. And I remember when I grew my team and I were up to like 17 employed staff plus subcontractors working for me. I used to love Fridays, because on a Friday, no matter what job they were on in and around Sheffield, no matter what the job they were on, lads, knock off at 3:00. I'll meet you in pub. Car park used to just be rammed full of all our vans. And then there'd be other builders as well going to this pub on a Friday afternoon. And it were almost me going, look at how many lads I've got working for me. Look at how many vans I've got, this big ego trip. But if truth be told, behind the scenes with me, I was making fuck all. I was making no money. I was skinning. But here's me giving the impression that giving the big un, I got all this. So if you're now at this point where you've got all these staff and egos kicking in, talk to us about turnover then. So where were you? Because you've gone from 120 grand when you first set up, just going over that threshold, to coming into 2020 plus. What's your turnover at this point now then?
Yeah, so sort of towards the back end of 2023, we were doing about 1.5, and it was only going up. from there. So 1.5 million, leading into 24, we would have been on the rolling 12 months, we'd have been hitting the 2 million mark.
Yeah, yeah. Which, I mean, let's face it, it's an incredible, it's a good turnover to have. And again, going back to ego, look at me turning over all these millions, all these vans, all these lads, it feeds that ego. But I know when I went through my challenge in growing my business at this level, I know the challenges I had, and there were a lot of them. So talk to us now and be honest, if you will, because there'll be people out there right now that are in a similar situation that unless they hear the challenges that these growing businesses go through, then they're going to think it's normal. And this is not normal, is it? So what were some of the challenges you were facing back then?
I think the first one was me and my time, my mental health. I was in a position back then where before 2020, I had a morning routine. I used to get up every single morning, hit the gym, go to work, good diet, in shape. All of a sudden, when you've got a team of lads turning up at the office, well, it's supposed to be 7:30, but it wasn't. It was later. I couldn't go to the gym for two reasons. One, because I had too much work to get done. I could not leave the lads. They had so many questions for me in the morning. And the other is I didn't want them to think I were a lazy bastard, because we all know what that envy is like towards your boss. If he's not there every morning, oh, how come he gets to go to the gym and we're all here at 7:30 working without him? So I started to have a real decline on both my physical health and my mental health. And that really affected my output. It affected how I were at home. It affected my life, my social group, my business network, everything. Everything was, it just weren't running well. I was neglecting time at home. When I used to get up every morning, I would be in that office at 5 a.m. on the dot, without fail, 7 days a week. And I would feel like I need to be there until the last van comes back and unloads and goes home, because I just had to show people I worked harder than everyone. And that were killing me. It was killing my home life. I weren't present. When I was present, I weren't present mentally. And I weren't giving my partner and my daughter at the time the life they deserved, and the dad and husband that they deserved.
Well,
go on.
I was just going to say, I know what that feels like, Jamie, when your business starts to consume you. And don't get me wrong, you've got to put the hours in them early days. But if you're sort of like coming from 2014 now, almost 10 years into this business, and you're still having to graft harder than anybody else in your business and prove to everyone that, you're not tossing it off behind the scenes and you're doing it yourself and leading by example, it's bound to take a negative effect on your business and on your life. And I actually remember feeling guilty. Have you ever felt guilty? Like you're busy, you've got loads of stuff going off, but you almost feel guilty if you have time off because you're thinking about, well, what's your staff saying about you? What do they think about you? It's all right for him having time off, but we can't have time off. So I understand where you're at when it comes to time and not present and one thing and another. I think most business owners go through that. So as well as having time challenges, what were happening to your cash flow? Because it's very simple. If you're turning over 1.5 onwards up to £2 million, that's a big wage bill to be paying every week. And big overheads, vehicles, officers, everything else, admin staff as an overhead. So what were happening to the cash flow at this point?
It were all over the place. It was genuinely all over the place. We couldn't do a cash flow forecast because all our business is new business. and it was reliant on marketing. So it depended on how the marketing was running to bring new business in. And then we started adding new services like MCS for solar, and then we needed bigger space to store stuff in. So overheads just kept creeping up and up and up. We needed to add new vans. We had vans on finance, vans we own, vans on lease. But just an absolute mess. And it was whatever. We'd buy a van outright when we were flush with cash, and then we'd be leasing one because we need a new van, but we've got no cash to get it. So there were just no structure to anything. We weren't tracking our supplier bills. We were just like 1 month. We got to a stage where we were paying 50, 60, 70 grand a month in supplier bills. And I was surprised when they came in, on that 30 days month end, 60 days. I'm like, fucking hell, where's that come from? We hadn't even had a busy month, but it's actually a month before that we were having to find money for, but that we've been paid for, or not in some cases. Every single cliche you can ever imagine about cash flow, late payers, bad payers, non-payers, good payers, just chasing money all the time, chasing his tails. And it was just having such a negative effect on me and my health again.
Yeah. And at this point then, you're turning over 1.5 million. Are you tracking all your numbers, like your gross profit, your net profit, your hourly rates, your overhead contributions? Are you on top side of all your numbers? Because 1.5 million quid's a decent chunk of money. We need to be on top side of it, don't we?
Yeah, the thing is, I knew how to do it, and we had some pieces of software in place to do it, and spreadsheets, but the truth is, I'd want to hide from it, because we have an hourly cost calculator that takes all our overheads and all the PAYE costs and divides it by the number of lads, and then puts a markup on, and that tells us what we should charge per hour, per day, per week, whatever. When we put that together, it spewed out such high figures that I was terrified. I mean, the figures were so high that he came out with that it was just unjustifiable to charge people that work. And it moved us into a market where we absolutely could not do any residential work, because we needed 700-800 quid a day per man.
Yep.
So it moved us into the realms of only needing to work with big boys and taking on big projects, £250,000 plus projects, which come with their own cash flow challenges and risks, much, much higher risks.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you right, you're working stupid hours, you're stressed out, you've got no time for you, no time for your family. Your cash flow's all over the show, which must have been giving you sleepless nights. So just based on the numbers then, turning over £1.5 to £2 million, do you know what your profit margins or your profit figures were, let's say, during a £1.5 million turnover year?
Yeah, we were doing between 7 to 11% net profit on a good job. That weren't on every job. That were on a well-performing job.
Yeah. I mean, 7%, is that net profit, yeah?
That's net, yeah.
Right.
That's net.
And then you've got your tax to come off it.
Yeah.
So
there weren't tax to pay because there weren't...
You weren't making profit.
Well, not 7%. I mean, 7% of a couple of million, it's still a large figure, but it's easy to be absorbed in the losses as well.
Yeah. So you're making profit on some jobs and losing money on others. So, if you're only tracking 7% on the jobs that you're making on, but you're losing on others, and you've already said, non-payers, are you getting to a point here where, I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to suss it out in my head. This is shouting out to me that you're breaking even at best.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. In them years, there were years where we'd have some decent profit margins, and then there were some years like 2023 was actually quite profitable. We had decent margins, But that's when the solar boom was really in play, and that at that time was high margin. You know, a domestic solar job would run us sort of 30%, 35% net profit margin. But there's a high cost of acquisition to obtain them solar jobs.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay. So, final question then, I suppose, from me around this stage. What about your team? Because to keep 12 employed, 13 employed staff and subbies going at any one time, I know the challenges. We're not having the right team and the right culture, rules of the game, vision, mission, everything that I've taught you. I know what it feels like not having that. It's like, for me, back then, it was like babysitting grown ass adults that hadn't got, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, no common sense, couldn't make decisions. They were on phone every 5 minutes. What do I do here? What do I do there? It's like, flipping heck. I've sent you to a job that's a simple job to do, but you phoned me 5 times asking me stupid questions. So I know what it feels like. But what were it like for you having a larger team?
It was similar. Now the challenges we had, everyone was really nice. You know, we had a really nice bunch of people. I wanted to employ people who were nice, but as you know, nice people aren't always fantastic at the job, or they come with flaws. And sometimes you need a bit of a bastard to be in there, a bit selfish, and someone who's just good at their job and knows it. So we had a really nice bunch of lads, but we had young lads who were all cockfighting for number one position, especially because they were all a similar age, sort of 22 to 26, and they'd never had any other job either. So they were seeing stuff online and speaking to other people at college. College is the worst because everyone at college earns £1,000 a week, apparently. And then they're coming back and saying, "Oh, well, so and so works at Yorkshire Water, and they get 35 days holiday a year plus bank holidays. How come we don't get that?" It's like, because you work at a small independent business, not fucking Yorkshire Water. But that, you know, that it's little bits like that started creeping into the team. And because I weren't present on site, I weren't there to police it and be in between everything. And we just started to have quite a lot of fallouts and losing continuity. And as a result of the fallouts, people thought other people were getting made favourites, and then you know, productivity went down and motivation went down. And in hindsight, you know, what we really needed was a couple of grown-ass men to be in there. But when we started recruiting for adult men in end of 23, 24, you know, the type of quality of staff we needed were well, I was interviewing and we were offering sort of 45 to 50 grand, and the couple of candidates that we did get said that's not enough. They said they can earn that at mighty 45 grand a year with a massive pension and do fuck all work.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And as we know, you know, what's ringing through my head here is the 3 relationships I say that you've got to have in business are with time, money, and team. Your relationships with your team. It sounds to me like at this point you're not in control of your time, you're not in control of your finances and your money, and you're not really in control of your team because of all this ego that's kicking off between your team members. Would that be right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so you're at this point now. Let's say this is 2023, yeah.
Yeah.
So sum up it very quickly. End of 2023. How are you feeling?
Just to change this a little bit, so the end of 2023, we actually finished on a real high business-wise. And some of the biggest staffing issues came at the beginning of 2024, because I'd finished for Christmas feeling like, yeah, do you know what? We actually hit our targets. We hit our revenue targets. We've just wrapped up for Christmas. Suppliers are paid. We've got enough money to pay all wages. We've got January, February, nice big £250,000 job booked in. I'm on a high, not realizing that actually I had pushed that staff team to their absolute limit in 2023. So when they've come back in 2024, they're demotivated, demoralized. But I'm on the up. I'm buzzing. I'm ready to go. Let's get these jobs. Let's, and I were probably a little bit blinkered. And then I'm getting frustrated, not understanding why they're not delivering on these jobs. But really, it's because they're struggling. They're struggling with the culture. They're struggling with the business. That I think I'd pushed them further than they could go. Hence the reason we were looking for men. So I knew it deep down, but I didn't want to admit it.
Yeah. So you mentioned 2024. I mean, this is a significant sort of like pivotal part of your growth, because it were sort of like January time when you applied for my Inner Circle, doors had opened. You applied for Inner Circle. I took you on into Inner Circle, and we started our coaching, didn't we, together? Well, not just me and you, but within the group that we got. And this were in February 2024.
Yeah.
And throughout the next sort of like 12 months, I think this is where learning how to build and grow a proper business and not making all them classic mistakes that you'd made and we see other people making. I think it's during this 12 month that the penny dropped with you about what you needed to do and you needed to change in your business to get your business and your life back. So if you just talk to us and share with us, on the Inner Circle, what is it that you learned? Because there's a lot that we covered, but what is it that you learned that you took away from that made you make that pivotal big decision that you're going to move on to next? So talk to us about Inner Circle.
Yeah, so it actually worked out really well in the way it's structured for me, because obviously the first session is personal development mindset, right? And I'd always admired that I've got discipline and structure, and I like balance and I like routine, and I've always been into gym and been active. So when I was held accountable to start that back up and start going back to the gym and start making tweaks to my diet and start looking after myself and putting myself first, I found that my mindset had got better from where I found myself starting to feel in parts a little bit like I used to feel.
Yeah.
Back in 2018, 19, when I had a small, young, growing business that I was in control of.
Yeah. And, everybody knows I talk about mindset being the most important part of not just yourself, but as your business. I often talk about the business is never the problem. The problem's always the mindset of the business owner. If we can shift and change the business owner's mindset, they can shift and change the life. So we started working on your mindset and personal development. You started getting your mojo back. What else happened on Inner Circle?
So then we moved on to time management, and I started tracking where I was spending my time, but more importantly, who was taking my time. And I had no time for me or my family. I was giving it all to staff, suppliers, clients, and the penny dropped. Just like, what the fuck are you doing? I think there was something that you said about you're getting in your 50s and you're starting to think like, how much time have I actually got left? And I'm like, well, do you know what? I agree. I'd lost my mum in 2023. She was 57, and she got a really quick bout of cancer. And after that happened, I just threw myself into business, but I didn't actually think, start looking after yourself. Like, get off your ass, stop giving everybody your time, and make sure that you are the priority to look after your family.
Yeah. So once you discovered that you were giving too much of your time away to other people, and not focusing on you, what are some of the things that you did from a time management point of view that started to get your time back?
I started saying no to everybody. I mean, I probably take it a little bit too far nowadays, but I just started saying no. But it then started to highlight the inefficiencies in the business. So right, I'm spending all my time on sorting materials out, even though we've got 2 administrators and a purchase order system. How am I still running around and picking materials up or answering the phone because someone's not got gear right? Or the gear's been sat at the workshop for a week and no one's checked it. They just picked it up, put it in a van and drove off to site, opened it when they were there, and then rung me and gone, this gear's not right, with no solution.
Yeah.
It's not a question. It's this gear's not right, and then it's waiting. What are you going to do? And I'm like, do you know what? Go fuck yourself. You're adults. Just I can't deal with it anymore.
So you started saying no to people. What other things did you put into your business then to help you start to get your time back?
So we started really looking at systems and procedures on that, which we'd always had. I'd always been quite proactive on systems, but I didn't know what a procedure was. So we had myself and 2 others in the office running these systems, but each one of us would do something a different way. So we'd end up either duplicating or not doing it at all. So we started to write some procedures. So we mapped out every single aspect of the business, broke it all down, and then started writing a procedure for every area. So around purchase orders in particular, gear is one of the biggest issues in construction.
Yeah.
Running short and the amount of time it spends to go pick up more, or people looking for an early knock with the excuse we run out of gear, I'll go pick it up, and then they don't actually pick it up that day. They go get it in the morning so they can grab another coffee and have a chat. So we started putting systems and procedures in place for everyone to follow.
And that then started to get more organized. You got more streamlined, more productive, more efficient, more profitable. All that lot started kicking in. So at this point then, now you're getting your time, you're starting to learn how to get your time back, putting these procedures and systems in place. Talk to us about your time, because how many hours were you working? Let's say back in 2020, 21, 22, when you were that, busy full doing everything. How many hours were you working then? And just share with us now how many hours you're working now.
It's almost hard. When we did the time tracking, I was between 60 and 80 hours a week. But there were no choice in that. That was a mandatory minimum amount. And like I said, I was in every Saturday and Sunday morning, 5 a.m. without fail, because I knew that if I wanted to do something with family, I had to earn it by being at work to clear stuff off. And now, currently, right now, I'm working about 30 to 35 hours a week. But I pick and choose when I work them hours. I did get to a point where I was doing 20, 25 hours a week, but I got a bit bored and lazy. And actually, I enjoy working.
Yeah, yeah. So learning about time management and how to manage your time correctly, what this has now done is it's now freed up your time. And also on Inner Circle, just share with us about you know, during that period before 2020, you weren't really spending a lot of money on your marketing, were you?
About £1,000 a year.
So a grand a year, and that was spent on what?
On my networking group.
Right. So you were spending £1,000 a year, but during that, let's say, busy full period, what did your marketing spend shoot up to? Because this is crazy. This.
Yeah, so when we started running paid ads, usually around mainly around solar, we were running paid ads, SEO, paid ads on Google and Facebook, SEO. Then we had organic social media that someone else were running for us. So we were spending between 10 to 15 grand a month.
A month.
A month.
So you've gone from £1,000 a year to a point where you're now doing 15 grand a month to feed the beast that were out of control, where you weren't making the right amount of money, where you were a slave to your business because your business controlled you, and you got a team that were all cockfighting between each other. But now
Well,
we're in a circle, right? And you're learning all about this. Just talk to us now about your marketing now and the results that the marketing is now generating. And now you've got all these strategies in place.
all right. So I now spend less than £1,000 a month on marketing. I run no paid ads. It's all organic SEO. I now manage and run social media myself because I like it and enjoy it. We've got into making videos a little bit, but I focus 100% on Google SEO now. And like I say, I spend £1,000 a month. And last month, just from the website only form fills, we did 68 grand in sales just from the website.
Yeah. And we spent 5 full months on Inner Circle, didn't we? Going through all the different marketing strategies that we need to do.
Yeah.
And now you've got to a point now where you've got leads coming out your ears, your website and all your marketing starting to work in. And instead of paying 10 to 15 grand a month, you're paying £1,000 a month.
Yeah. It's £1,000 a month, pretty much just on backlinks. So we've done a lot of work. We very quickly, when I focused on SEO and I found the right person to work alongside, because I like to do a lot of it myself as well. We got ranked for the services we want to pretty quickly, but we found the bounce rate was quite high on the website. So we started implementing tools to watch people and monitor the behavior and find out why they were bouncing. So we're now in a position where we're making all the tweaks just to drive people to contact us however they feel to.
Yeah, yeah. And it's working. It's working now because you're only spending £1,000 a month and you're still getting all these leads coming in.
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday we got 9 website inquiries yesterday, but they're vetted as well. You know, they're not just anybody. You know, we have quite an extensive form to fill in, which we play with every month just to see what sort of works and what we prefer. But then they're 9 vetted inquiries, and they're only for the services that we're looking for. LED lighting, EV chargers, solar panels, battery storage, and electrical testing and compliance.
Yeah, yeah. Because they're the ones that make you the most amount of profit.
Yeah, either they make us the most amount of profit, or they're easy, quick cash flow jobs, gap fillers. You know, like they're good. They're easy, low hanging fruit that pays reasonably well, that we can deliver really well on as well.
Yeah. And I suppose talking about sort of like profit and profitable services that you offer, when we got to the point where we did the cash and finance month on Inner Circle, I think this were a bit of a pivotal moment for you, weren't it? Because now we're about 7 months into Inner Circle. You've started becoming more motivated. You've got your mojo back. You're working on your mindset, personal development. You're getting your time back now. So your time's coming. Your marketing's starting to kick in and you're saving all that money. Then we moved on to cash and finance. And I think this were one of them sessions that made you make this big decision, isn't it, that you came to. So you just want to talk to us about that, about cash and finance and that, and lead us into that big decision that you made, Jamie.
So when we started covering the cash and finance, and you know, again, I was quite advanced in comparison to some other people that come on the inner circle, and we'd got some stuff already in place, and I kind of knew a lot of the stuff, but I was choosing to ignore it. So I knew that my business should be a minimum 30% net profit margins. And I was refusing to accept it because I'd got into this mindset, and we all do it every single year. And I think anyone who says different are lying. I go, yeah, but if I just keep working, and this time next year, it'll be sound. We'll have got that big job. We'll have landed that contract. We'll have that golden goose who's shitting us referrals every week. And the longer you keep lying to yourself, the worse you're making it. So we ran through the cash and finance, and I could no longer hide from the kind of profit my business should be making. And I sat down and I spoke to my partner. We just had our second baby, and I said, "Do you know what? I'm going to make the most selfish decision I've ever made in my life, and I'm going to get rid of all my staff. I'm going to get rid of the offices. I'm going to scale it back, and I'm just going to work myself." And we sat and had a conversation. And actually, I don't particularly like being an electrician. It don't get my juices flowing, whereas running a business does. So decided that I would keep a couple of staff, and then some people that we had, we helped to go in the self-employed world. And now, you know, we're in a position where I say 2.5 sparks. So I've got 2 full-time and someone who does part-time for me. We've outsourced our admin to a VA who does bookkeeping, invoicing, chasing up jobs, a lot of the virtual assistant stuff. And then we use Dan at Rewired to answer all our phones. We've just started with them guys. They're quoting all our EV jobs for us. So because we get 3 to 4 EV inquiries a day, domestic that is, it made sense for them to just quote it. They're dealing with it. And I now don't need to work the stupid hours that I used to.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to that. Let's come back to the present day where we are in a sec. What I want to drill down on here is that big decision that you made, because I had to make the same decision myself, late 1990s, to what some people term scale the business back. And that's exactly what I used to call it. Let's scale the business back. And there'll be thousands of people listening to this episode now, Jamie, that'll be saying, do you know what? I had to do the same. Or there'll be people sat there going, do you know what? I probably should do the same. But for whatever reason, it's stopping them from doing it. And what was stopping me, Jamie, was I've been in business all them years. And I was at the same point as where you were, stressed out my head, not making any money, robbing Peter to pay Paul, not seeing my wife, not seeing my kids, working my bollocks off. Everybody's benefiting from my hard work other than me. And I'm sat there going, if I scaled it back, I'd feel like I'm a failure. I'd feel like I'm a loser because I've got my business to this level. I've got these high turnover figures. I've got all this staff working for me. I've got these wonderful officers. I've got all these vans on the road because I had. And the thought of me having to let staff go, get rid of some vans, come out of office and go back to working from home in my garage, all that lot, I looked at that and thought, I can't do it because people are going to look at me as a failure. But I tell you something, me making that decision to, I don't call it scale back anymore. I call it regroup. My decision back then to regroup were one of the best decisions that I've made for everything and everyone involved in me, my business, and my family. So talk to us about that moment where you made that decision then. You've made this decision. What did it feel like for you to have made the decision? And once you made that decision, did it feel like a weight had been lifted off your shoulders? Because it did for me.
So making the decision, executing that decision, giving up the offices, giving back leases, moving staff on that have been with me a long time, it was the hardest and most heartbreaking thing that I've ever done. And this is going to sound really awful, but right now, I'm so happy that I've done it. Everyone's gone on to be self-employed. Everyone is all right. But from making that decision and then actually telling people, the 3 to 4 weeks after that, I just had something in my stomach that I just couldn't shake. I was a nervous wreck. It was awful. But then once we made the transition and I built my garden office, and then sort of that first day of the rest of my life, and I went to gym and I didn't worry about anything, and I stayed there for 2 hours and got a sauna and steam room, and lads' diaries were full, and we took deposits and there were cash in bank, and like I remember coming out of the gym and thinking I could just go get a coffee and just go see one of my mates, or like this knot of anxiety that had been sat there, and the guilt, and all that mix of emotions that had been sat in my stomach for the last 4 years constantly, it just lifted a bit. It not completely gone, but it just I physically felt it lift, and my mood lift. And then over the next few weeks after that, just every morning when I walked out of that gym, I felt like I had some freedom,
Yeah.
which I'd not had since the first year of being self-employed. But it's freedom that I didn't have employed either, because there were always that dread waking up every morning. "Oh, I've got to go to work." And the improvements that that's had on my mind and my family, my home life, is just immeasurable. You can't imagine.
Yeah. And now if we bring it full circle, you've come out in a circle, and we've finished in a circle just over a month ago. Yeah. We finished in a circle. During this period of transition and change, you've grown your business by 113% whilst you've been going through this transition and change. But what I'd like you to share now, Jamie, is you making that bold decision. Talk to us now about where you are now. What are the benefits of you regrouping your business in terms of your mindset, your time, your marketing, your cash, your financial position? Because you're making more profit now with a smaller team and a smaller business than you did when you were turning over 1.5 million. And you're not working 60, 70, 80 hours anymore, are you? You're working around 30 hours a week with no stress. So talk to us about where you are now and the position that you've put yourself in.
Yeah, so I now have a very good morning routine. I've got hobbies. I train 8 times a week. I go to gym 6 mornings, and I train with a Thai boxing PT twice a week, 9 o'clock, Tuesday and Thursday on the dot, and I don't miss. Whereas previously I'd be cancelling all the time because work had getting way. I've got a good diet. I've dropped since I made the change, about 20 kilos. So I think that in old money, 3 stone, 3.5 stone, something like that. I feel physically better. and I've just got time. There's no anxiety or guilt, like you say, about needing to stop work to look after family, to go on holiday. We buggered off to Lanzarote a couple of weeks ago. I had one phone call from one of my lads, and it started with a quick text message. I'm really sorry to bother you on holiday. Can I just double check something before I install it? Because they were on a big industrial job. I rung him, said this goes there, and he goes, right, that's it, you won't hear from me. And I didn't. I turned my WhatsApp notifications off. I turned my email notifications off. And I came back to inquiries being dealt with, some jobs being quoted and accepted, invoices being sent out. And the only thing that was left for me to do was to do the QS of the certificates and send them out for the jobs that have been done while I was off.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the word freedom. You know, that's why our business is called the Trades Freedom Club. And I talk about achieving time and financial freedom. And I think what a lot of people mistake financial freedom for is they believe they've got to become multi-millionaires to have financial freedom. And we don't. And other people seem to think that we've got to have like a massive team to do everything for us to achieve time freedom. But we don't. And I look at you now, Jamie, coming through, you know, this your journey that you've just shared and getting to the point where you're at now. And I would say that you've achieved time and financial freedom because you're earning the profits to be able to live a nice lifestyle. You've got your time back to choose when and where you spend it. And for me, that's time and financial freedom. Would you agree?
I used to be of the mindset of you needed millions to be happy. And maybe it's because I'm getting old, but I've had a switch of mindset, and time is the most valuable thing that you have. And being able to have a choice of who and where I give my time to now, it makes me feel free. And yeah, like we're drawing a decent wage from the business. We're not going to be millionaires in the current form, but we earn a better wage than most. We pay less tax than most, and we work less than most. And we've got time to start other businesses. So, like, I'm winning, and like you say, it's freedom. It's not the American dream freedom of selling a massive business and living on a yacht, but I tell you something, it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. And that, listen, and you know what? The thing that I believe everybody's striving for, and I know this because I've done it myself, that the big business, whether it's the ego trip, whether people want to become multi millionaires, whatever it is that people are wanting, do you know what I believe it is underneath all that? All it is one word. And that one word is happiness. That's it. All people want to be is happy. And what I see a lot of people doing is driving for this huge business with multi-millions of pounds and all this stuff, because I believe that they think that that's going to make them happy. And me and you have both experienced that building and growing and scaling a business, turning over millions of pounds, doesn't make you happy. It doesn't, does it? It doesn't make you
Not
happy.
at all. Not at all.
And just having that choice of being able to get up, do what you want when you want, have the money to be able to fund a nice lifestyle, and being happy, for me, that's absolutely priceless. So let's just turn, you've been honest and you've given us your figures for where you were 2020 to 2023 when you were in that, busy full period. But now, Jim, are you happy to just share a few numbers on where you're currently at now?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, bearing in mind this is with only a team of 2.5, if you like. Last month we did 59k revenue, with a 72% gross profit and 39.5% net profit.
39.5% net profit, whereas before you said you were doing 7%. Okay. So
And every job is profitable.
yeah. Because you've chosen your target market, you've got your profitable products and services in place, you know your numbers, and you've got a great team and systems behind scenes. So with this then, so what's your predictions in sort of like turnover then, with these two and a half sparks, if you like? What's your predicted turnover for this next 12 months?
I reckon we're probably going to do about 700.
Right.
And if you'd have asked me that before, and I had a prediction, it'd have been 750, because that's 250,000. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like, if we did 700, I'd be absolutely over the moon.
Right. So 700,000 turnover on a what on a what net profit before tax margin is that?
Every job, quite every job to be at around 40%.
Right. So £700,000 turnover, 40% net profit margin would work out at what? 200 and
About quarter of a mil, bit
two,
more.
200,
Right,
280,000
right,
in
yeah.
it. So 280 grand. So where we're currently at now then is if we look at these numbers and we look at these figures, we're saying that 2020 to 2023, we're turning over 1.5 million with 13 to 15 members of staff. Were you working 60, 70, 80 hours and at best just about breaking even or making a 7% net profit? But by you making that brave decision to regroup and implement everything from in a circle, you're now at a point where you're turning over 700 grand with a 40% net profit margin, not 7, making 280 grand a year, not a piddly amount off 1.5 million. And you've got your time back. Is that fair?
That's 100% correct. Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And you know what, Jamie? You know, the sad thing is behind all this, there will be so many businesses out there right now that are in that busy, full position that we've been in that won't take the time to understand and learn that there's a quicker, easier, risk-free way of growing a business and getting your time back. And for the next 10, 20, 30 years, they'll be flogging that dead horse, that business. They'll be flogging it to death, digging themselves an early grave, making everybody else rich around them and making themselves sad, not happy. So I think, Jamie, honestly, hats off to you from what you've done, because not only of this last 12 months, you know, you've had a baby as well in between all that. You've changed your business. You know, you've made some big, bold decisions. And here you are now, what I believe is inspiring other people that will be listening to this to think, well, if Jamie's done it and he's made them decisions and I'm in that position, perhaps they should have a look at it themselves.
That's exactly why I wanted to do this, Craig, because I now, when I used to speak to other Sparks and they say, oh, I'm on my own or I've got one or two lads, I used to look down on them. I shouldn't have done, but I did. And I couldn't wait to tell them how many staff I had and how many vans I had, and you know, because you think you're Billy Big Bollocks. And I'm not even that sort of person. It just brought it out of me. Now, when people tell me I've got 10 lads, I think, unlucky, gutted. Because you can see it in their eyes that they're not happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, when you get into that trap that we've been in, you've got to feed the beast. I call it feeding the beast. It's you've built this monster. You're not in control of any of it, really. But because you've got staff, and let's face it now, if you've got employed staff, you can't just sack them. You can't just sack employed staff. And I know for a fact there's many, many businesses out there that have oh, look at me, Billy Big Balls. I've got the work. I'll keep taking more staff on, get the vans, get the office, all that lot. And now they're trapped. They're stuck because they can't just sack people off and just get rid of them in today's day and age. So now they're trapped in a business that's consuming and controlling them. So, Jamie, with that in mind, then, I'm going to ask you a question here about advice, right? So, for anybody watching or listening to this episode now, if you could give them one piece of advice based on your journey and what you've been through to where you've got to today, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them, be selfish and do not put other people's wants above your needs.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah. And you know what? When you say that, if you remember in a circle, I always say a lot, you've got to be selfish and think about yourself and your family, because you're the most important. The business is not the most important thing. You and your family are. So you saying that, be selfish. I totally get it. And I totally agree with what you're saying, because if you're constantly thinking about other people and other people's feelings and what customers are going to think and other people are going to think, again, you're not in control of your business and you're going to be trapped.
I now apply that across everything. I need to look after myself. So I am going to go to the gym in the morning. And because it's a priority that I stay fit and healthy. I do it in my business, in the clients I'm taking on, in everything.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Jamie, so I'm sure there's going to be people that are wanting to maybe contact you or ask you a few questions that are listening to this now. So what's the best way of people being able to make contact with you?
Yeah, so people jump on our website. It's wyelectrical.co.uk, and then all our socials are at West Yorkshire Electrical.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. Well, look, Jamie, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing and being honest as well. You've not hidden anything. You've been honest and open and transparent. And I think a lot of people appreciate that. So thanks ever so much for joining me, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Cheers, Craig. Thank you.
Well, what an honest and inspirational insight into Jamie's business and the journey that Jamie's been on. But this is not just about Jamie, is it? Because I know for sure that there will be people watching and listening to this episode right now that are thinking, do you know what? I'm in the exact same boat as what Jamie's been in, or the way in which my business is heading, I'm heading in that right direction. Well, listen, stop. There is no shame and there is no ego trip to you saying to yourself, listen, I'm working too many hours and I'm not making enough profit. If you've got to regroup or take a step back and regroup and learn how to build, grow, and scale a proper business that's going to look after you and your family and give you the time back to invest back into the fruits of your hard labor, exactly like Jamie's doing now, then do it. The last thing me and Jamie want is for you to get 5 to 10 years down the line to have built a beast, built a monster of a business that's out of control, where you're running yourself and working yourself into an early grave and earning no profit. That has just got busy fool wrote all over it. So take this episode and what you've learned and ask yourself the question, what is it right now that I need to take a look at and make positive changes in my business to make sure I don't go down the same route as what Jamie did, and to make sure that I can safeguard the two most important currencies in business, which is time and money. So thank you for joining me and Jamie on this episode. I'll look out for you on next week's episode, and I'll meet you at the top. Thank you.